My parents sold my house and my car to fund my sister's dream. This isn't some plot for a movie, it's my life. They said I had to sacrifice because family is everything. But when I finally stood up for myself and took them to court, everyone turned their backs on me. Friends, relatives, they all called me cold, ungrateful. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Stick with me and let me know what you think. I'm Emily, 32, a senior executive at a major tech firm in Manhattan, earning around $500,000 a year. My apartment overlooks the city, and I drive a luxury car. On paper, I have it all: success, wealth, freedom, but it's all a facade. Everyone thinks I'm living the dream. What they don't see is the emptiness behind closed doors. No family to share my achievements with, no heartfelt calls, no dinners at home. I've learned to accept it, especially since I severed ties with them 3 years ago. 3 years ago, on this exact day, I discovered the ugliest truth about my family. They betrayed me, took advantage of my love, my trust, in ways I never saw coming. I had always believed that no matter what, family sticks together. I was wrong. I thought I could count on them. But what I didn't know was that my sister's dream would cost me everything I worked for. I was always the one who gave. But this time, when I came back from my business trip, everything was gone. That day, I made the most crucial decision of my life: to walk away and make them face the consequences of what they'd done. It was a Friday, a day I thought would be the end of a long, exhausting journey, my return home to tranquility after 6 relentless months. But instead, it became the day I lost everything. I had just touched down in New York, exhausted from the long flight back from Toronto. 6 months earlier, my company had expanded into the Canadian market, and with no branch director in place, I was tasked with setting up shop. Countless sleepless nights, constant stress. But at least I had one thing to look forward to: my quiet, welcoming home, a place where I could finally breathe again. I had envisioned it so vividly. Walking through my front door, shedding the weight of my suit, pouring a glass of wine, and collapsing into my favorite couch. A peaceful reprieve after 6 relentless months. I grabbed my suitcase from the baggage claim and hailed a taxi. As the city lights blurred past, I stared out the window. New York was as alive and chaotic as when I'd left, but a nagging feeling deep inside told me something was off, something wasn't right. 30 minutes later, we arrived at my street. But as soon as I turned the corner, everything stopped. My Porsche, my prized possession, was gone. It was as if it had never been there. I squinted, sure I was mistaken. Maybe my parents or Sophia had borrowed it. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and walked quickly toward the front door. The lights were on, but that strange sense of unease crept back, settling heavy in my chest. I fumbled with my keys, frustration building. I slid them into the lock. Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. The lock had been changed. A cold wave of panic washed over me, chilling me to the bone. Keeping my composure, I knocked firmly on the door. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps from inside. The door opened. Standing before me was a woman in her 40s, well-dressed, looking at me with a puzzled expression. "Can I help you?" she asked calmly. "Sorry, but this is my house. Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaky. Though I tried to sound firm, she narrowed her eyes slightly before letting out a small chuckle, as if I had just said something ridiculous. "You must be mistaken. We're the new owners of this house." I stood there stunned. What the hell is going on? I stepped back and looked around. But no, this was my house. The address and the street were the same. I pulled out my phone, opened the map, and double-checked the location. It was impossible to be wrong. My heart pounded harder. My pulse raced. This couldn't be happening. But if this was my house, why couldn't I get in? Why was a stranger living here? I stood tall, forcing my voice steady. "No, I'm not mistaken. This is my house. I'm the legal owner and I didn't sell it to anyone. She was silent momentarily, then sighed as if dealing with someone delusional. Wait here. She disappeared inside for about 2 minutes. When she returned, she was holding a stack of documents. She handed me a sheet of paper and said in a measured tone, "This is the deed. I bought this house 5 months ago. The sale was completely legal." My fingers tightened around the paper as I scanned it. My name was gone. Her name was now on the deed. The transaction was final. I didn't need to think twice to know who was behind this. My whole body went numb. My parents? They had sold everything without even telling me. I couldn't let this go. I called for a taxi, my mind spinning with a single consuming thought. I had to confront them now. Just yesterday they'd called. My parents. Their voices had been so warm, asking about work in Canada, if I was okay, when I'd be home. Not once did they mention selling my house 5 months ago. My mother's words lingered in my mind. "Emily, take care of yourself. Is work overwhelming? Come home when you can." But now? Now, those words felt hollow, like a betrayal. 15 minutes later, I was standing on the doorstep of my parents' house. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself, then rang the doorbell. The door opened, and there they were, my parents, their faces frozen in shock. "Emily, why didn't you tell us you were coming?" My mother's voice was soft, filled with surprise. I didn't respond. Instead, I marched past them, straight into the living room. They quickly followed, exchanging uncertain looks. I spun around, my eyes icy, and my voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You sold my house." The room fell into a heavy silence, thick and suffocating. My parents exchanged a glance, hesitating before speaking. "Emily, calm down," my father finally said, his voice softer, almost desperate. "It's not what you think." My mother took a step forward, reaching out for me, her touch familiar but not comforting. "Sweetie, we just borrowed it. Just for a little while. We'll get it back to you. Just a few more months." I pulled away, stepping back from her hand. "Borrowed? What are you talking about? How could you sell my house without even telling me?" My father let out a long sigh, his gaze drifting away. My mother stammered, her words failing her. I stared them down, voice icy. "Why? Why didn't you tell me?" There was no immediate answer. I could see the flicker of guilt and discomfort in their eyes. Finally, after what felt like forever, my father sighed deeply, head hanging low. "We sold your house, your car, to get $800,000 for Sophia, so she could invest in stocks." Silence hung heavy in the room, the air thick with tension. I stood there, unable to speak for a moment. Then I exploded. "Sophia? Again? Why is it always her? Why do I have to lose everything for her?" My voice cracked the silence, tearing it apart. I had seen this pattern too many times. Once again, my life, my possessions, were being sacrificed for their golden child. My father flinched, raising his hand as if to silence me. "Emily, relax. Sophia is your sister. She's smart. She has potential. As her older sister, investing in her is the right thing to do. This time, she'll make a profit." A bitter laugh escaped my lips, sharp and filled with frustration. How many times? How many times have I given everything? My money? My time? My energy? How many times have you come to me borrowing from me to help Sophia get rich? And what do I have to show for it? They were silent. No answers. "Emily, this isn't Sophia's fault," my mother quickly intervened, her voice defensive. "She didn't want this. She's just been unlucky." "Unlucky?" I clenched my fists so tight my knuckles turned white, the fury bubbling up. "Number not this time." I stared them down, my voice icy, cutting. "1 week, you have 1 week. If you don't return my house and car, I'll go to the police. I'll take you to court. And I swear you'll all end up behind bars." My father slammed his hand on the table, his face burning with anger. You ungrateful brat. Is this how you speak to your parents? I stared him down, unwavering. Sorry, but you must have me confused with someone else. You only have one child, Sophia. The words cut the air like a blade. My parents stiffened, their faces drained of color. They knew I wasn't backing down anymore. Without another word, I turned and walked out. The door slammed shut behind me, the sound ringing in my ears like the last trace of a family I no longer recognized. That night, I checked into a hotel, my mind heavy with one thought. They had just made the biggest mistake of their lives, assuming I was still the submissive daughter they could manipulate. As soon as I entered the room, I walked straight to the bathroom, cranked the cold water, and let it flood over me. It was the only thing that could anchor me. I closed my eyes, taking deep breaths, letting the cold water wash away the whirlwind of thoughts. Family, home, money, spinning in my mind like a storm with no escape. I felt slightly lighter after stepping out of the shower, but the emptiness remained, gnawing at me. The coffee I'd ordered was waiting on the table, untouched. I picked it up, took a slow sip. Oddly, it didn't taste as bitter as it usually did. Maybe because the truth I was swallowing today, that was the real bitterness. Leaning back, I stared at the window, the reflection of the city lights dancing across it. I saw myself in that glass, exhausted, worn down, but refusing to break. And then the memories came flooding back. Sophia, my younger sister, 3 years younger. From day one, she had been the golden child. As a child, whenever I had something Sophia wanted, my toy, my book, even my attention, my parents would make me hand it over. If I dared to refuse, they'd accuse me of being selfish. You're the older sister, you have to let her have it. That phrase, that command, repeated so many times, it became like a rule I had to follow. But for me, if I wanted anything, I had to earn it. At 17, I saw the truth. Sophia wasn't just spoiled. She could take whatever she wanted and never face any consequences. She stole $200 from me. It wasn't much to some, but to me, it was everything. Money I'd worked my ass off for in my part-time job, every penny carefully saved. When I found out, I was furious. I demanded she give it back. But Sophia just laughed, like it was some joke. The most shocking part wasn't her stealing. It was how my parents reacted. They didn't scold her, didn't demand an apology. Instead, my mother's soft voice echoed, Emily, she's your sister. You two are all each other has. Let it go. My father nodded, that same pity in his voice. She's your little sister, Emily. You can't be petty with her. Petty. The word hit me like a slap. I remember the rage burning inside me, but I couldn't speak up because to them, Sophia was always in the right. When I went to college, I balanced school and work. My parents only paid for my tuition. Everything else, food, books, rent, I had to handle myself. I worked late shifts, waited tables, fixed computers just to scrape by. Sophia? She didn't even have to lift a finger. My parents covered Sophia's tuition, rent, food, everything. If she wanted a new laptop, they bought it on the spot. If she wanted to travel, the cost didn't even faze them. Whenever I asked about the difference in how we were treated, their answer was always the same. You're the older sibling. You need to stand on your own. Sophia's a girl. She needs support. What sickened me most was how they idolized her as some kind of genius when I knew she couldn't even tie her shoes without help. If she got a bad grade, it was because she was sick, always an excuse. If she solved a first-grade math problem while in third, Sophia's a prodigy. If she flunked a project, it was just bad luck. She was always brilliant in their eyes, even when she wasn't. They spoiled her until she was delusional. She honestly believed she was smarter than everyone around her. The world, in her mind, revolved around her. And now, My parents had just sold my house and car to hand her $800,000 to invest. A girl who couldn't even tell the difference between revenue and profit. This wasn't the first time she had used my money to start a business. I had lost no less than $200,000 funding her so-called genius projects. The first time was right after she graduated from college. She excitedly announced that she wanted to open a unique cafe with a unique business model that would surpass Starbucks. I invested $50,000 in her. 1 year later, the cafe shut down. I never got an apology, just a casual remark from my parents. Sophia is still young, she needs challenges to grow. The second time she returned with another groundbreaking idea, flipping cheap apartments for resale. She swore up and down that she'd make massive profits and that real estate was always a safe investment. I gave her another $100,000. 2 years later, the project failed. When I asked where my money went, she shrugged. It's an investment. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The third time, it was a fashion store. She insisted she had an eye for style and that her brand was going to be the next big thing. I didn't want any part of it, but my parents wouldn't let up. My mother cried. My father interrogated me. Do you know how hard your sister's been working? Why are you being so stingy over just $60,000? If you don't help her, you don't deserve to be her older sister. And in the end, I lost another $60,000. Every time, the money came from me. If I said no, my parents would break me down until I couldn't take it. They'd call me selfish, accuse me of not loving my sister, of only caring about myself. And when that didn't work, my mother's ultimate weapon would come out. If you don't help Sophia, I have no reason to live. Through it all, Sophia never once expressed gratitude. Not once did she repay me a single penny. A knock at the door jolted me from my thoughts. I set my coffee down, took a deep breath, and walked to the door. It was David, my lawyer, and one of my closest friends. I'd called him while still in the taxi, knowing I couldn't face this alone. David stepped in, shrugged off his coat, and sat down. His eyes scanned me, a mix of curiosity and concern. You okay? He asked, though I knew he had already guessed what had happened. I leaned back, closed my eyes briefly, and told him everything, from my 6-month work assignment in Canada to coming home and discovering my parents had sold my house and car without my knowledge. I just can't believe it. Before I left for Canada, I didn't trust anyone else, so I asked my parents to look after my house. And now I come back to find out they sold it 5 months ago. I looked at David, waiting for his reaction. He didn't respond immediately. His lawyer instincts kicked in, and he studied me carefully. After a long moment, he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. If they sold your house, this is bigger than it seems. I frowned, feeling the weight of his words. What do you mean? David tapped his fingers against the armrest, his voice deliberate. There's a chance this could be fraud. No one can legally sell a property without the owner's consent, unless... A cold shiver ran down my spine. Unless what? David sighed, his gaze sharp. Unless they forged your signature. My heart dropped. You mean they forged my signature? David shrugged, his eyes intense. Not necessarily. There are plenty of legal loopholes that the average person would miss. They could have faked a power of attorney document, making it look like you authorized them to sell the house and car, or it could have been a gift deed, something with your signature on it. I froze. A gift deed? David nodded. Exactly. If you signed something in the past 6 months, even without realizing it, they could have swapped documents. I squinted, digging through my memories. 6 months ago, did I sign anything? David suddenly laughed, his voice tinged with sarcasm. Maybe you were drunk and signed something without knowing. Happens more than you'd think. I scowled, the joke not landing at all. But deep down, I knew David was right. If my parents had forged my signature, this wasn't something I could let go. I closed my eyes, going through my memories, searching for that moment when I might have signed something related to my house. Then, out of nowhere, it hit me. "Wait!" I shouted, my voice so loud that David jumped. "You remember something?" David asked, his eyes widening. I clenched my fists as the memory clicked into place, clear as day. The day I left for the airport, my parents and Sophia had been there to see me off. They handed me a stack of papers just before I entered the departure area. "Emily, sign these quickly," my mother said, her tone casual, like it was a normal task. I frowned, confused. "What's all this?" "Just a power of attorney," she replied, smooth as ever. "You'll be gone for 6 months, so if anything needs fixing at the house, we'll handle it. And if the government or police need anything while you're away, we'll take care of that too." I trusted them. I asked, "Why so many papers?" My father chuckled, patting my shoulder like I was being foolish. "Just to be safe, sweetie. Some repairs need both original and duplicate copies for submission." Part of me wanted to believe them, but the other part, I was in a rush. My flight was boarding. I didn't have time to read through everything. I quickly skimmed the first few lines, saw power of attorney, and just signed. I didn't question it. I never imagined they would do this to me. Now I was paying for my own blind trust. David stared at me, his gaze heavy. He sighed deeply, his hand tightening around his coffee cup like he wanted to shatter it. "You handed them a golden ticket to destroy you," he said, his tone cold. David stood up, adjusting his coat with purpose. His eyes sharp and focused, he said, "This is a mess. But don't panic, I've got it. There's something wrong with those documents. I'll go over everything. Meet me tomorrow afternoon. I'll have something for you." I nodded without saying a word. I trusted David. If anyone could fix this, it was him. He moved toward the door, then paused, his face hard. "Stay calm, Emily. The angrier you get, the more they'll think you'll back down." I wasn't sure I could stay calm. The door clicked shut, and the silence in the room was suffocating. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Why? Why would they do this? What had I done to deserve it? It wasn't just the money they stole, it was my trust. My parents, who were supposed to be my protectors. Sophia, the sister who was supposed to stand by me. My fingers clenched around my phone, trembling with fury. I wanted to scream at her, demand she admit her betrayal, force her to justify what she had done. I called Sophia. It rang. No answer. I called again. Nothing. She wasn't picking up. She knew I was back, knew everything, and now she was avoiding me. 2 weeks later, my life began to settle into some kind of rhythm. I couldn't live in a hotel forever, so I started searching for a new apartment. Even though the battle wasn't over, I knew I had to keep pushing forward. I stood in a high-rise apartment, overlooking Central Park, listening to the real estate agent detail the apartment's features when my phone started ringing, non-stop. I ignored it, but the ringing wouldn't stop. Irritated, I pulled the phone out of my pocket. My father's name popped up, decline. Then my mother called, declined. Just a minute later, Sophia's name flashed on the screen. I stared at the screen, my heart cold and steady. I didn't need to guess. They had gotten the lawsuit. They were panicking, terrified of the fallout that was coming for them. I had no interest in answering. Excuses? Begging? Blaming me? I didn't care. I blocked their numbers, all of them, without a second thought. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, nodded to the agent, and said, "Go ahead." 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't my parents or Sophia. It was Uncle Jack, my father's older brother, who always stayed out of family drama. We weren't close, but he was the kind of man who thought things through, never took sides blindly. If he was calling today, it was likely to mediate. I picked up the phone, and his voice came through right away. "Emily, I know you're furious, but can't you give your parents a way out? They're still your family, still your parents." I closed my eyes, took a slow, steadying breath, and responded calmly. Uncle Jack, if Grandpa had sold your house, your car, and handed all the money over to my dad, what would you have done? He hesitated, his voice wavering. Why are you asking me that? I smirked, sensing the doubt in his voice. Because that's exactly what my parents did to me. A long silence followed, and I could almost hear the shock in his silence as he realized everything he'd been told was a lie. Finally, he spoke, his voice filled with doubt. No way. They told me they only borrowed money from you and hadn't had time to repay it. They said you overreacted and sued them out of anger. That's what they told everyone. I let out a bitter laugh. Is that so? Well, when the trial starts, I'll make sure you and the whole family see the truth for yourselves. I didn't wait for his reply. I hung up. The truth would come to light soon, and I had no more explanations to give. 2 months later, after the silence had swallowed us, we finally met again. In court. My parents sat at the defendant's table, Sophia beside them, clutching her purse like it was her only lifeline. My mother kept glancing around nervously, desperately looking for someone to back her up. And then they froze. Their eyes widened as they realized just how many relatives had come to witness the trial. I watched my father's brow furrow, his face darkening, as he noticed the accusing stares from family members who had been silent until now. The lie, the one where they claimed they just borrowed money and hadn't repaid it yet, was starting to crumble. The truth was out. Before the trial, I'd texted Uncle Jack, telling him to spread the word and invite the whole family. I wanted them to see firsthand how the people who claimed to love me had stabbed me in the back. As I walked into the courtroom, all three of them, my parents and Sophia, turned their eyes toward me. My father's glare shot through me like daggers. My mother's face drained of color, and Sophia? She just sat there, staring at me, expression unreadable. No one spoke, but their eyes said it all. They never thought I'd follow through. At exactly 8 a.m., the trial began. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with tension, the air heavy with anticipation. My parents' lawyer stood up, adjusting his tie, his voice confident. Your Honor, my clients have done nothing wrong. The defendants acted within the legal authority granted to them. The plaintiff, Emily, signed a power of attorney giving my clients full control over the house and the car. I remained silent, my body stiff. I wanted to see how far they'd push this lie. We have indisputable evidence. The documents are fully legitimate, with the plaintiff's signature, notarized on October 23, 2021, he said, pausing and glancing at me like the case was already in the bag. As soon as he finished, I felt the weight of my parents' and Sophia's eyes on me, eyes that were convinced they'd won. My mother's chin lifted, a smug smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Sophia crossed her arms, leaning back in her chair, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. My father raised an eyebrow, his look cool, calm, and confident. They thought they had me cornered. I heard whispers spread through the crowd behind me. If she signed a power of attorney, what's the point of this lawsuit? Parents wouldn't betray their own child, would they? This is too much. This is family. I couldn't help but smirk slightly, but deep down, I felt no fear. As soon as the judge nodded for David, my lawyer, to present our case, he stood, adjusting his suit and picking up the file. His gaze was sharp as he scanned the room. Your Honor, David's voice was calm and unwavering. On October 23, 2021, when the defendants claim my client signed the power of attorney, my client was not in the United States. He was in Canada, handling a 6-month business assignment. He paused, allowing his words to hang in the air. This notarized power of attorney is invalid. The notary was involved in a fraudulent act, which is a criminal offense. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. I could see the confidence drain from my parents' faces. My mother turned to Sophia, silently demanding answers. My father frowned, trying to maintain control. Sophia went pale, clutching her purse, her eyes wide with panic. And then, the doors swung open. 2 officers stepped in, escorting a man in a gray suit, his hands cuffed behind him. The notary. For a moment, everything stopped. David continued, unfazed. Your Honor, after my client filed his lawsuit, authorities conducted an investigation. They confirmed the notary received a $20,000 bribe from my client's parents to falsify the documents. The room felt like it was holding its breath. My father turned pale, his mouth opening like he wanted to speak, but the judge raised a hand for silence. I looked at my parents. Gone was their smugness. Now all I saw was shock and fear. The judge turned to the notary, his voice firm. Do you have anything to say? The man trembled and then let out a sigh, nodding. Yes, I'll tell the truth. All eyes were fixed on him. It's true. I took $20,000 from the plaintiff's parents to notarize the documents while he was out of the country. The room was dead silent. My parents stood frozen, their eyes locked on the notary. David turned to me, waiting for my response. I thought back, the realization suddenly hitting me. I had received a call from the notary's office, but I had thought it was related to company paperwork, not my house. I told them I was in Canada. That confirmation was all they needed. I let out a bitter laugh, my heart sinking. My parents had twisted this misunderstanding into the perfect crime. The tension in the courtroom was suffocating. When the notary admitted his guilt, I heard the screech of a chair scraping across the floor. You bastard! I paid you $20,000, and now you're turning on me, my father roared, his face flushed with fury. The judge slammed his gavel down. Order! One more outburst, and I'll have you removed from the courtroom. The room fell into complete silence. The judge turned to my parents' lawyer. Counsel, do you have anything to add? The lawyer stood frozen for a moment before releasing a heavy sigh, shaking his head. It was clear. He knew they had lost. There was nothing left to argue. That could salvage this mess. 5 minutes later, the judge looked down at the papers and pronounced his verdict. My parents were found guilty of financial fraud and document forgery. They had knowingly falsified the power of attorney to sell my property without my consent. Their punishment? 10 years in prison without parole. On top of that, they were ordered to pay me $1.2 million, including $800,000 in stolen funds and $400,000 in penalties. If they failed to repay, the court would seize their assets. Sophia, though not directly involved in forging the documents, knew about the crime and kept silent. She was convicted as an accomplice and sentenced to 3 years of probation, along with a $100,000 fine. If she violated the terms of her probation, she would be sent to prison. The notary, who took a bribe to falsify the documents, received a 15-year prison sentence. His notary license was permanently revoked, and he was fined $250,000 for his role in the fraud. After delivering the verdict, the judge slammed his gavel down, declaring that the sentences would be carried out immediately. Officers moved forward, cuffing my parents and the notary, preparing to escort them out. My parents were frozen in shock. Sophia's face drained of color. The notary lowered his head in defeat as they were led past me. My mother glared at me, her eyes full of fury. Are you happy now, you bastard? You've destroyed this family. My father stayed silent, but the way he looked at me, full of resentment, told me everything I needed to know. In their eyes, I was the villain. I didn't flinch. I locked eyes with my mother, my voice calm but firm. You and your golden child did this to yourselves. You had a choice. You could have spent your lives peacefully, growing old with both your children by your side. But you chose greed, and now you pay the price. She gritted her teeth, but there was nothing left to say. The officers began pulling them away. My father turned his face, but I saw his fists clenching in defeat. In the background, whispers spread among the relatives. I could hear their murmurs. That boy is ruthless. No matter what, they're still his parents. Who sends their own parents to prison? Where's his filial piety? I didn't respond. Uncle Jack stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. His voice was soft, almost sympathetic. I'm sorry, Emily, but I think you did the right thing. I nodded, silent. Not everyone in the family agreed with me. Many cursed me, calling me ungrateful, heartless. They said my parents were old and I should have forgiven them. But what was forgiveness when they'd never shown remorse? 3 years passed. 3 years with no calls, no messages from anyone in my family. 3 years of living my life, but the echoes of their condemnation still haunted me. I stood up for myself. I fought for justice. But the price? Losing my entire family. So what do you think? Was I right or wrong? Leave your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe. Share this story and stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Goodbye and take care.